What's up, everybody? I just wanted to make just a really quick video, kind of like a how-to. I've never made a how-to video, but more than a how-to, it's really more about how I did it, and with research and things, and what I found on YouTube, and asking questions, and what I've done in the past. This is what I came up with. So this particular video won't be kind of like a step-by-step, but just more about the products that I used. And how I got everything to work. So obviously I have the red Scotch Brite pad if you really want to scuff things up. The gray Scotch Brite pad I use mainly for the primer. After it was dry, I just scuffed it up just to give it kind of like a tooth for the paint to stick to. So that's what I use. I also use some sandpaper that I have here. I have all kinds of sandpaper, more Scotch Brite pads. Mainly when I scuffed the chrome up, I used 180 grit. That's what I used to really scuff it up, and it worked perfect. Then after you get everything sanded down and before you apply your paint or primer, you want to use some tack cloths to kind of get the last bit of debris off and everything, so there's no dust, debris, or anything sticking before you lay your primer or your paint or anything like that over that. This is what I used here, this glazing and spot putty. Now this here is because the rim, the lip on it had some curb rash, and I actually painted the lips of my car, and actually really turned out really good. But this glazing and spot putty was just to kind of fill in some of those rash marks and dings and curb markings to kind of level it out. And this dries in like 20 minutes, so I just kind of just laid it over flat, and then you have to take some sandpaper and sand it down, and I used about 400 grit to sand it smooth. So it's just for a quick job, and it actually worked pretty good. So that's what I used to kind of fill in my curb marks. And these are the products that I used to get the paint to stick to the chrome. But this is actually the products that I used to stick to the chrome. Again, like I said, I painted the lip of my chrome. These here are the products that I used. The center faces of my wheels kind of had was like an aluminum. I'm not sure if it was aluminum or not, but it was like, I think it was more like an aluminum, and then it was actually covered with some type of like clear film that was actually chipping off. And when I sanded it down with the red Scotch Brite pad, the film actually came off, and it went kind of towards that. I think it was aluminum. It could be a different type of metal, but I'm not sure. But it probably was aluminum. But in any case, what I did is I sanded it down with the red Scotch Brite pad. Then I used the self-etching primer so I could get everything to stick. And again, this self-etching primer will stick to metal, bare metal, aluminum surfaces, fiberglass, and whatnot, and it's corrosion resistant. So that's what I used as my base. When I was talking to the paint shop, they said that I could paint over that self-etching primer, but this would be better to apply over the self-etching primer to get the paint to stick even better. So, and this comes in all different brands, but I use this particular one. I used black. I kind of wish I used gray, so the paint actually came out a little bit more noticeable, but I used a black primer over the self-etching primer, and it came out good. Now, when I applied those two, I actually scuffed this up after it dried just a little bit with the gray Scotch Brite pad, and then I helped this stick even better. And then when this dried, I also used the gray Scotch Brite pad to scuff that up before I applied the paint. Now this paint is actually color matched to the car. I just gave them my code, took it to Westco, and they color matched it for me, and they put it in an aerosol can. And so I used that to spray over this, and it came out great, y'all. I mean, it came out really great. It has a nice, good metallic to it. It's awesome. And then at the end of it all, I use this VHT Wheel Paint and Gloss Clear. And this is supposedly specific for wheels. It's high temperature, and it's also supposed to be chip resistant. So it gives it a different type of protective coating on it for like rock chips, things like that. So that's what I did for the center faces of it, because the metal was different, and I wanted to apply the self-etching primer and this primer to get the paint and the clear to stick. So again, that's what I used there for that. Now this part here for the chrome, again, I painted the lip around my wheel on the dish chrome because of the curb rash. and it actually turned out great. So again, I sanded it down with 180 grit sandpaper, got it down as far as I could, cleaned it all up, airbrushed or air hosed it all off to get all the grit and everything out. Applied this and I smoothed it down the best I could. And then I sanded it down with 400 to 600 grit to get it smooth. Then I cleaned it all up again using air and tack cloth, cleaned everything down with alcohol and everything. And then I applied this adhesion promoter. And again, this kind of helps your primer and everything stick a little bit better. Now, you technically, from what I heard, don't really have to use a adhesion promoter, but just as a reassurance, I did. And this stuff has worked awesome for me. I've used it for a lot of different applications. So you spray that on, give it about 2 light coats, you let it dry for about 5-10 minutes, and then I use the filler primer. And the filler primer is a little bit different than a self-etching primer. Lays on a little bit thicker, and it helps to kind of fill in between like any imperfections and gaps and things like that. It doesn't do like it doesn't fill in the scratch marks and in there all that totally, but it does work really good. So I use this as my primer base, and then again I lightly sanded it down after it dried with a gray Scotch-Brite pad, and I used this paint again to lay over the primer because again this is color matched to my car, and that applied awesome. And then after it was all said and done, I laid the clear, the VHT clear back over it again. So that worked great. And then lastly, I also painted the inner barrels. I wasn't going to, but I decided since the outside of my rims were going to look really nice and the inside of those rims were not looking too good, and you'll be able to see them, I just went ahead and scuffed them up with a red Scotch-Brite pad, taped off everything so overspray wouldn't get on the outside of my rims. And I used this matte black Duplicolor paint, and it actually turned out really good. It actually looks like new. So I scuffed it up with a red Scotch-Brite pad, wiped it down with some alcohol, cleaned it up, used the tack cloth, make sure all the dirt and everything was off, and before everything I washed it with hot soapy water, and then went through the process of scuffing, wiping it down, and then I used this matte black Duplicolor paint and applied a few coats, went on good, and then I applied this wheel matte clear coat color, and it's not a gloss like this here. It actually comes out like a matte dull finish. Hey, what's going on, y'all? So the video got cut short. I just ran out of space in my memory, so on my phone. So I'm doing just a quick sum up of what I was talking about. So I did the inner barrels a matte black, and then I cleared it with a matte clear. Like I said, I didn't want it super shiny in the inner barrel because it's gonna get dirty anyway. It's gonna get dirt and grime and brake dust and things like that on it. So I didn't want to have to worry about always keeping it shined up. That way, if I didn't wipe it down for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever, a few days, it wouldn't look that bad being a black, matte black. But I put the clear coat on it to protect it. So it's been holding up pretty good, and I'm happy with the results. So, but yeah, that's what I use to paint my wheels and do the chrome part as well. It's my second time actually painting some set of wheels, and this time around I was a lot better at it. The first time I did, it held up really well as well, but I didn't clear it, and then over time with rock chips, things like that, it started to chip away. Ended up selling those rims anyway, and I did more research in regards to these set of rims as far as painting them and how to paint chrome and things like that, and it worked out great. So anyways, I just wanted to do kind of like a part 1 video, and then I have a bunch of videos in regards to how I actually painted and went through the process of doing my wheels and doing the inner faces of them, and then the chrome lip and all that. So that'll get more in depth as I go. So hopefully I think I got every step along the way, and I don't want to make the video too long, but I'll see what I can do to help somebody else. So anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and again, those are just the products that I used. Again, I do recommend them, but you don't have to use them.
If you know some better way, you know, you can make a comment, and maybe help somebody else in regards to that who might be watching my video. So anyways, I'll cut it short right here, but thank y'all for tuning in, and be on the lookout for another video coming shortly after this, part 2, and it's actual the process of what I did. So all right, y'all, peace out.